Hello dear students, welcome back to our video lesson with me as a tutor, Abeni Tengoy. I hope you all are sincerely learning and enjoying the video lessons. Today I'll be doing alternative English for class 12 prose section starting from chapter 1, that is Letter to My Daughter, written by Jawaharlal Nehru. This book, originally called Letters from a Father to His Daughter, it contains 30 letters, 30 letters which was written by the first Prime Minister of independent India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, when he was in Allahabad in 1928 for his daughter Indira Gandhi. The letters taught the young Indira about natural history, formation of earth, and the rise of civilization. At the time of writing this letter, Nehru was in Allahabad and his daughter Indira was in Mussoorie. While original letters written by Nehru were in English, it was translated in Hindi by the Hindi novelist Munshi Premchand under Pita ke Patra Putri ke Naam. In these letters, Nehru takes up a variety of topics. He discusses natural history, the beginning of the earth and evolution. He talks about the varied races of the world, the genetic makeup, the differences in communities and races, and how these races were formed and how people looked different. So to make up for his absence, he wrote these letters for his daughter. So this is how it goes. It has been just 3 or 4 days ago that Nehru had written the last letter. So after 4 days, that very evening, he was asked to pack his belongings, but not to be discharged, but only to be transferred to another jail. Nehru is in Bareilly jail right now, So he bade farewell to all his companions because they had been staying together for 4 months in the same jail. He was not the only one to be transferred. He had a companion. So it was 2 of them who were to be transferred to another jail. Nehru and his companion were not taken to Bareilly station to avoid the risk of people seeing them because they have become Padanashins. Padanashins are people who remain behind a parda or a curtain because of tradition of family or society, and they do not come out in general public. Nehru and his companion were taken by a car to the little station. In the wilderness, that means an uncultivated, neglected area. Nehru felt thankful for the drive because it delighted him to feel the cool night air and see the phantom trees and man and animals that rush by in the semi-darkness. And this happened after so many months of seclusion. Then they were finally brought to Dehradun. So early morning, they were taken out of their train and taken by car again. And they made sure that people do not see them again. And now they are in the little jail of Dehradun. And there it seems that the jail there in Dehradun was better than the jail in Bareilly. Why? Because the weather does not rise to 112 degrees, and the walls surrounding them were lower, and the trees that overlooked them were greener. It makes Nehru feel good at night, to imagine the lights of Mussoorie twinkling in the far distance. So it was 3 or 4 years ago that he started writing these letters to his daughter. And at that time, his daughter was in Mussoorie. Now, during these 3-4 years, a lot of things has happened. Nehru has written these letters mostly from prison. But the more he writes, the less he liked about what he was writing. Nehru used to have this fear that his letters might not interest his daughter much. And this this would be a trouble or a burden for her daughter too. If Nehru fears this, why then should he continue to keep writing the letters? Actually, Nehru would like to place vivid images or pictures before her daughter about the past and make her sense how this world of ours has changed step by step, developed and progressed. He wants her daughter to see something of the old civilization. Nehru should have liked to take her on man's trail, that means on man's path, and then follow it up from the very beginning when man was hardly a man to today, when he prides himself so much, rather vainly or foolishly, on his great civilization. It was when Indra was in Mussoorie that they talked about the discovery of fire and agriculture and the settling down in towns and the division of labor. Nehru continues that he had placed the skeleton of the old happenings before her and had wished that he had the power to cover it up with flesh and blood. Now here skeleton literally does not mean that he brought a skeleton right in front of her, but he meant to say that he had given the surface of the history or the outline of the history to his daughter. And he wants his daughter to learn more or to gain more knowledge about the old civilization. That is what he meant by this skeleton. But he is afraid that he has not got that power, and her daughter must rely on her imagination for the miracle to work out. He then questioned himself, then why should he continue to write the letters when he knows that his daughter can learn about the old civilization or history through good books? But Nehru also realized that whenever he sat down to write letter, he imagined his daughter to be sitting next to him and like they're having a talk with each other, and that makes him feel happy. And of man's trail, that means of man's path, man emerged stumbling and slouching from the jungle. It has been a long path of thousands of years. He mentions how man is naturally more interesting than anything else that existed before him. He is interesting because he brought a new thing with him. That is mind, the curiosity, the desire to find out, to explore and learn, which others do not seem to have had. So from the earliest days began man's quest. Observe a little baby, how it looks and wonder at the things and the wonderful things around. He begins to recognize the things around him. Now look at a little girl. If she is healthy and sound, he would ask questions because she is curious. Likewise, in the dawn of history, when man was young and the morning was new, he must have looked and stared around himself and asked questions. But who was he to ask? Except himself. There was no one else to answer his questions or the things that was going around his mind. But he had a wonderful little thing called mind, as I mentioned earlier. And with the help of his mind, slowly and painfully, he went on storing his experiences and learning from them. So from the earliest days, man's quest has gone on. And as he discovered vast new territory, he learns that he is still far from the end of his quest. That means the more you learn and discover, you realize that the more you need to learn, and that there is no end for discoveries and learnings. And so for thousands of years, men have tried to answer many questions. Religion, philosophy, and science has given their own answer from its own perspectives. Nehru also admits that he do not know most of them. Religion has attempted to give a complete and dogmatic answer. That means answers relating to a strong set of principles regarding faith and morals. Science gives a doubting and hesitating reply, because science do not give answers based on faith and morals like religion. Science gives answers through experiment and reason and rely on the mind of man. Nehru prefers the scientific method because it is rational and open-minded. Gradually, man has looked outside himself as well as inside. He has tried to understand nature, and he has also tried to understand himself. The mind has carried man a long way in his voyage of discovery. As he has learned to understand nature more, he has also utilized it and harnessed it to his advantage. And thus he has won more power. But sadly, Nehru goes on to talk how people misused science, or how science is being misused. Science itself has been used chiefly to supply himself with terrible weapons, to kill his own brother, and destroy the very civilization that he has built up with so much labor. So that simply means that the effort that we have put in civilizing ourselves is destroyed or can be destroyed in the blink of an eye because of how we misuse science. So we must be very careful in whatever we are doing with the invention and discoveries that we create through science by using our mind. So students, this is the end of our explanation. I would like to discuss some textual questions with you now. Why was Nehru not taken to Bareilly jail or not taken to Bareilly station? Nehru was not taken to Bareilly station because they want to avoid people seeing them, for they have become Padanashins. So I've explained that Padanashins are people who remain behind curtain or parda because of tradition of family or society, and they do not come out in the general public. How did man make sense of his new surrounding? He made sense of his new surrounding by making use of his mind, and that is how the discovery of fire and agriculture and the settling down in towns and the division of labor all came up. Okay, why does Nehru sees man's story as being more important than that of others? He feels that way because for man, he has got a wonderful little thing called mind, which the others, that means the animals or with whatever that existed before him, do not have it. It was only man who has got that wonderful little thing, mind. And because of this mind, he became very curious and he started to explore himself and learn many things. So why does Nehru say that the jail in Dehradun was better than the jail in Bareilly? It is because of the weather, first thing, because the temperature does not rise to 112 degrees, and also the walls surrounding them were lower and they could see the trees and the lights that were beyond. We are done with our lesson, and thank you so much for being with us and learning something with me today. Until then, stay safe.